Hello, and welcome back to another Chris McPherson Show Daily Dose Cricket Daily for the 29th of January, a little later today with some extra news coming out that we're waiting for around the Australian women's captaincy, as well as some other breaking news, which we'll get to in a moment. But let's start, of course, with making sure you hit like and subscribe on the video and the channel. Get involved in the comments and let us know what your key takeaways are from the matches that have happened or your predictions for the games ahead, as well as your reaction to the breaking news around the suspension of an American player, as well as the new Australian women's captain. And you can, of course, find all of our snippets on our social media channels at The Chris Mac Show. You can find us on Instagram, on TikTok, on X, and on Facebook. Let's start with the Under-19s World Cup. Australia versus the West Indies overnight. The Aussies booked their way through to the semi-finals, led by captain Ollie Peake, who came to the fore with the bat after Australia were sent in their final Super 6 game. Peake came in with the platform already set for him to launch from. Australia were 84 for 2 after 11 overs, and paired first with Nitesh Samuel, Peake continued to accelerate things. Samuel tallying 56 from 74 before Peake took the lead and peeled off a century with 109 from 117 deliveries, leading Australia to a 300-plus total before he was run out on the final ball of the innings, just trying to add one more. Australia set 314 for 7 with other notable contributions from Will Malachuk, 48, and Alex Lee Young, their wicketkeeper, 45, helping Australia to set the big target, while Joaquin Pollard was the pick of the West Indies bowlers. He was quite economical and getting the breakthroughs, 37 for 2 from his 8 overs. And I tell you what, 315 might have seemed a daunting chase, but the Windies got off to a strong start and were straight about their work. They went hard from the get-go with opener Zachary Carter scoring 64 from 42 deliveries, Julie Andrew chipping in with 44 at better than a run a ball as well, and captain Josh Dawn anchoring the innings at number 4 with 62 from 97. And when Andrew fell at the start of the 27th over, the chase was absolutely still on for the West Indies. They required 144 from 143 deliveries with 7 wickets in hand. But the Australian bowlers all of a sudden tightened things up. They turned the screws with economy rather than wickets, restricting the West Indies to just 33 runs from the next 10 overs to have them with their backs against the walls, requiring 110 from 84. The West Indies decided to try and put the foot on the accelerator at this point, but unfortunately for them, as they accelerated the run rate, they accelerated the wickets falling as well, as they lost 5 wickets in the final 10 overs whilst accruing only 60 runs of the required 83 when they turned at the 40th over. At the end of their 50 overs, the West Indies were 292 for 9, a gallant performance, but unfortunately for their cause, not a victory. And again, Charles Luckman was leading the way for Australia with the ball with 66 for 4 from 9 overs to sit him equal top of the leading wicket takers for the Under-19s World Cup, alongside Pakistan's Ali Raza with 12 wickets. The victory, as I said, locks in Australia's semi-final spot, where they'll take on the second-place team from Group 2, which we'll be waiting to see as that plays out across the final pool games for India, England, and Pakistan. What this match did highlight, though, is when you have a look at the schedule, is there's a glaring gap in the Super 6 format at this Under-19s World Cup, where teams only play 2 crossover matches from teams in the other pool. E.g., Australia finished top in Group A, will only play the second and third ranked teams from Pool D, which was the West Indies and South Africa. They do not play against Afghanistan, who finished top of Group D. For the sake of 4 more matches across the whole tournament, balance could have been had, parity could have been achieved. While I'm sure the ICC will say it's an endeavour to avoid teams playing twice, the only way that plays out is if 2 teams from the same Super 6 group end up playing in the final, and so be it. If they've played out a great Super 6 game, we get a second one between 2 of the top teams. More good games between more good teams must mean more ratings, surely, and more excitement for these junior cricketers. In the end, it does potentially change the balance of who qualifies through based on the premise of a tougher initial group or an easier one as well. Circumstance in that group stage can really impact you, and New Zealand's the best example of that. Look at New Zealand, who had 2 of their games washed out against probably 2 of the, opponents in their pool they would have been expected to be more competitive against, and it limited their chance of progressing. They finished on just on 2 competition points after 2 games were washed out, and the only game they got on was India. They then come into the pool stage, and they don't get an opportunity to play 3 more games, meaning that there's no chance for misstep or misfortune along the way. So again, no system's perfect, but I really think there's been a piece missed here, and it needs to be resolved for the next edition of the Under-19s World Cup in 2028. Let's move on to the India and New Zealand, the 4th T20. The Kiwis have struck back against what looked like a Kevlar-plated Indian batting lineup across those first 3 matches. On a slow deck in Vizag, India won the toss, sent the Kiwis in, and the New Zealand openers did their best impressions of India's batting antics from the first 3 games as they took 100 runs from a 50-ball opening partnership as Devon Conway got 44 from 23 and Tim Seifert went on with it 62 from 36 each with 3 sixes, each setting the tone for a big total for their side before cameos from Glenn Phillips, 24 from 16, and Daryl Mitchell, 39 not out from 18, ensured the visitors surpassed 200 and steered them to an imposing 215 for 7. But as we know, even that is not a blocker for this Indian lineup. They can absolutely mix it with the best of them when it comes to run scoring. However, Matt Henry struck again first ball to remove Abhishek Sharma, and India's reshuffled batting lineup with no Ishan Kishan struggled a little, let's be fair, despite a glittering half-century down the order from Shivam Dubey, who got 65 from 23. They never actually got properly going, and they were all out for 165 in the 19th over to give New Zealand a 50-run victory and a little bit of a glimpse of hope, both for New Zealand and all those other sides who've been sitting watching in awe as to what India have done in the first 3 matches of this series. One match to come, a little bit of pride on the line for New Zealand. India will be looking to bounce back to make sure they head in winning form into the T20 World Cup. But that wraps the recaps. Let's talk some cricket news, as I alluded to off the top. And Australia's women's side have named Sophie Molyneux as their new captain going forward. She will start with taking control of the T20 side against India in the matches coming up in the series in Australia. She replaced Alyssa Healy, who announced her retirement earlier this month. Molyneux will take the captaincy of all formats from Australia's Caribbean tour in March. And Molyneux's got a stellar captaincy record, including captaining Victoria since 2022, where she filled the void of Meg Lanning, as well as leading the Melbourne Renegades in the WBBL, including to the 2024 WBBL title. Molyneux certainly beat out a cast of strong contenders, including current vice-captain Talia McGrath, Phoebe Litchfield, Annabelle Sutherland, and Ash Gardner for the role. Gardner has been elevated to joint vice-captaincy alongside Talia McGrath moving forward. And the one question I do have here is Molyneux's obviously been injury-prone over her time in the Australian side. We hope that that's not a case or an influence, but does this lead to an inconsistency? Does this mean that there's more of McGrath and Gardner stepping into those roles and we don't have the constant flow? Again, I'm not going to too harshly question the wisdom of the managers and the leaders of the Australian women's cricket team because they've absolutely got a stellar record behind them with the captains and the teams that they've selected. But it does leave a question mark on it, but we wish Sophie Molyneux all the best as Australia's next women's captain. Healy will lead the team in the one-dayers and test match against India before wrapping up with that final test match as her final match in Australian colours. In other breaking news, the USA's Aaron Jones has been charged with breaching both the CWI, so the Cricket West Indies, and the ICC anti-corruption codes. He's been charged with 5 breaches and suspended with immediate effect. Jones was part of the 18-man train-on squad that's been in camp in Sri Lanka for the USA ahead of the T20 World Cup, and the US were expected to name 15 from that 18 for their World Cup squad in the coming days. Jones will clearly now be ineligible, and he has 14 days to respond to the charges. Jones' charges include matters relating to corruption, and we'll just run through a few of these, but they all relate back to international matches and matches in the BIM T10 tournament in 2023-2024. So he's been charged with fixing, contriving to fix, or otherwise influencing improperly, or being party to an agreement or effort to fix or contrive in any way, influence improperly the result or progress of other aspect of matches in that BIM 10 tournament, or attempting to do so, failing to disclose to Cricket West Indies details of any approaches or invitations to engage in conduct that would amount to a breach, failing or refusing to cooperate with a reasonable investigation carried out by the anti-corruption officials. And then under the ICC code, failure to disclose to the ICC anti-corruption unit full details of any approaches or invitations received to engage in corrupt conduct, and obstructing the ACU, so the anti-corruption unit's investigation into possible corrupt conduct by concealing and or tampering with information that may have been relevant to the investigation or which may have constituted evidence or led to the discovery of evidence of corrupt conduct. So sounds quite ominous, the fact that there's such a number of charges. The ICC statements also indicated this was part of a larger investigation, which is likely to result in further charges being issued against other participants in due course. So I guess watch this space. Jones had to this point played in 100 matches for the US in ODI and T20 formats, with the last of those being in April 2025, as well as having played in the CPL, the Major League Cricket, and the Bangladesh Premier League as well. So a fairly decorated cricketer. It's not a good look, but again, innocent until proven guilty, and he's got 14 days to respond. So we'll wait and see what comes of that, as well as that ominous statement from the ICC regarding further participants in due course. But there's never too far away from some controversy and cricket, that is for certain. Let's move on to our look ahead, and we've got a few games to look ahead to in terms of bilateral international matches, and it starts with Pakistan and Australia, the first T20 in Lahore. This is probably a timely series for Pakistan, I think, as they look to bed down their best side, including the returns of the likes of Babar Azam, Shadab Khan, Shaheen Shah Afridi, while for Australia, its congested schedule just gets added to even further. The intent would have been to have these as a genuine T20 warm-up series for the World Cup, but it's not going to be the case with a number of players out of action. And straight off the back of the BBL, it's a very, very busy schedule for our Aussies. You would normally expect that the likes of Mitch Marsh and Josh Ingles would be in this side, but they won't play in this game after having only been a couple of days removed from their final in the Big Bash and the celebrations that would have come with that. That will see Travis Head lead the T20 side for the second time. We'll also know Josh Hazlewood, Pat Cummins, Tim David. They were too far out in terms of injuries from the World Cup itself. They won't participate alongside Glenn Maxwell and Nathan Ellis, who have all been rested from this squad. I'd expect to see the likes of Marley Beardman and Jack Edwards get some game time in Australian colours, which will be great for them, and they've shown real positivity in the Big Bash, so well deserved for them. It could be a real lottery, though, depending on lineups trying to predict this. So I won't make any predictions until we see what the 11s are and how players are going to slot back in. In terms of players in the spotlight for this one, there's two men's names who jumped to the top of this. Babar Azam, after a very sluggish and disappointing BBL, where Pakistan actually did Sydney a favour by recalling him back to Pakistan early. And Cameron Green, there's expectation he's going to step back into some more bowling, as well as picking up his batting performance for Australia. So this is a great chance for him to warm into it and get the ball in hand, as well as some wonderful batting time as well, hopefully. Expect the deck here in Lahore to be flat, high scoring. There has been some rain in the lead up, but that's expected to have passed. These games are being played 4 p.m. local time to avoid late night winter fogs. So expect the outfield could be a little bit impacted by that rain, but otherwise we should see plenty of runs here, big hitting and lots of work for the bowlers. The other two matches we need to preview, the UAE and Ireland, the first of two T20s in Dubai. This is a genuine warm-up and first look at the UAE leading into the World Cup. Ireland should be better for their 3 hitouts versus Italy, and I'd expect the UAE to probably be on par, if not slightly better than Italy, based on the squad they've named that will be led by Mohammad Wasim. Ireland will want to continue to work on getting that batting lineup firing. They haven't been able to get multiple players firing in the same game, and that will be the key for them as they look to outperform their ranking in the T20 World Cup. And both sides will just be wanting to make sure they're getting match practice, especially for the Irish continuing to get some in that subcontinental conditions in Dubai. And last but not least, we head to Centurion for the second T20 between South Africa and the West Indies. The first game was a great one. Expect the second one to be much the same. South Africa's top order batters got it done in game one in Pal. They'll be looking to manufacture a way for some of their middle order batters to get some batting and get their eyes in. Jason Smith, but most notably DeWalt Brevis, Baby AB, after that century in the SA20 final. They want to get him back in and keeping his eye in with some form. There's certainly plenty of positives for a South African bowling attack in game one, while both sides will relish a deck that should give some more true bounce, and we may see a little bit less reliance on spin, I'd expect, at Centurion. The West Indies, they'll be focusing on uplifting their batting as well as their fielding execution after a few misses in the field in game one. Notably, 2 of those were tougher caught and bowled chances on the follow-through, but again, it'll be something they'll want to pick up. Look for South Africa to bring Quinton de Kock back into their lineup to open, as well as with a bit more bounce and pace, Unrik Nortje and Lungi Ngidi after they were rested. While West Indies, I would expect they'll bring back in Shai Hope, who was recovering from a niggle. It was a late scratching from game one after he picked that up in the SA20. And then potentially Shamar Joseph on a much more suitable deck for him as well. South Africa will go in as favourites as well, but the West Indies, a little bit of a wild card, a bit like Pakistan in the game against Australia. It's a bit hard to exactly predict depending on what the lineups are as teams look to reshuffle and get game time into a number of different combinations and players in the days leading into what's promising to be a very enthralling and exciting T20 World Cup in India and Sri Lanka. But that is your Cricket Daily for the 29th of January. A huge thank you for tuning in. Make sure to hit like on the video. And if you haven't already, keep up to date with all your cricket news by hitting subscribe. Hit the bell icon down below as well. That way you get notifications when we drop another episode. But until next time, we look forward to bringing you all of your cricket news as well as all the other sport that we keep on bringing you, tennis, basketball, and much, much more. Huge thanks to you for tuning into your home of the Black and White of Sports and the Grey Opinions here on the Chris McPherson Show.